Take my bride, let's go for a ride in my newfangled automobile. Just where we will go, nobody knows, but it's sure a great way to feel. Behind the wheel of the speed meter steel, it's my newfangled automobile.
Hello and welcome to Vintage Car History. I'm Wild Bill. There are some military leaders in history who were absolute geniuses at winning battles and wars. Hannibal, Alexander the Great, Admiral Yi Sun Shin. Men so brilliant that their strategies, tactics, and writings are studied at war colleges to this day. And in America's early automotive industry, there was a genius so brilliant at making a company profitable that his strategies, tactics, and writings are studied at business colleges to this day. Al Sloan. Alfred Pritchard Sloan, Jr. was born in New Haven, Connecticut in 1875, the firstborn of five for Alfred Sr. and Catherine Sloan. Sr. was a machinist turned businessman, becoming a manager and eventually part owner of a company that imported and distributed tea and coffee. The family moved to Brooklyn in 1885 to be near the headquarters of the coffee company, now Bennett Sloan Company. Young Al, of course, learned both business and engineering from his dad at a very young age and proved to be exceptionally keen at both, in particular applying engineering principles to business and vice versa. Living in and around New York at that time gave him much opportunity to see the explosion of new technologies springing up everywhere: telephones, automobiles, electric lights, and other scientific wonders. And Sloan was all over it, excelling at school while studying other interests. He tried to get into MIT early, but was initially turned away because of his age. He was accepted at age 17 and would graduate in 1895 at age 20 with his degree in engineering. Jobs were hard to come by at that time, as the economy hadn't recovered yet fully from the Depression of 1893, but his dad had connections. The job wasn't exactly prestigious. Through a friend of his father, he was hired as a draftsman at the Hart Roller Bearing Company. The company's owner, John Wyatt, had patented a type of roller bearing that had found some use in bicycle and industrial applications, but the firm he built to exploit the patent wasn't making any money. Located in New Jersey, the factory, located next to a municipal dump, was in more need of a good coat of fire than of paint. He worked there for 2 years, despite the smell, until he found a real job with a startup company that was making refrigeration systems for use in hotels and such. Cutting edge. But as cool and better paying as this company was, it was not financially solvent, and so that firm went under about a year later. Coincidentally, though also unsurprisingly, his old haunt, Hyatt, also went belly up about the same time. This presented an opportunity. Al Sr., along with a friend of his, bought the failed bearing company and asked Al Jr. to run it. So, Al returned to Hyatt as the president of the company and made immediate changes. He asked his old workmate to take care of sales while he handled the engineering and organization. This arrangement worked very well, and since cars were now becoming a real thing, both of them began to focus on capturing some of that market. Soon it would be Al doing the selling, since he was an engineer and could speak fluent engineerese to prospective customers. One of those was Henry Leland, who did not buy from him, as the Hyatt quality control did not meet his standards, and being Henry Leland, his standards were the highest bar possible. Full interchangeability down to the micro-inch. This inspired Al to change his own manufacturing process, and within a few years, Hyatt was a major provider of bearings to the automotive industry. By 1914, Hyatt bearings were found in Ford and General Motors products, and the company was quite profitable. But having only 2 customers was risky, and so Al decided it would be best to sell the company to one or the other. Billy Durant, being Billy Durant, was interested, and after a bit of negotiation, Hyatt was purchased for $13.5 million and became part of a new corporation, United Motors, which was owned by Durant. The purchase price included some of it provided in the form of United Motors stock, which went to Al. United Motors was, for Durant, the company that consolidated companies that manufactured parts and components for cars instead of complete automobiles. Recognizing Sloan's ability, Durant put him in charge of United while he continued to buy more companies, such as Klaxon and Harrison Radiator. As companies were added, Al continued to structure the organization to keep things nice and profitable. Billy Durant was a good leader, but business strategy was not his strong suit. He sold United Motors to General Motors in 1918, which, due to both his position and company stock, now made Al Sloan a member of the board of directors and also the head of parts and accessories division of General Motors Company. Now a VP at General Motors, he got to know others who had keys to the powder room, including Walter Chrysler. He and Walt would become lifelong friends. Indeed, the two of them took their families on a European trip in 1920 under the pretense of studying operations at Citroën. They did perform the study, but during their travels, the two had much discussion about how things should be run at GM if they were in charge. As fate would have it, both men would be in charge of major companies within a few years. Once he returned, Al wrote a significant paper on exactly how he would run the company, including fully drawn organizational charts with detailed responsibilities at each level. It was not the typical business structure common at the time, and at first it did not generate much interest with the big money people behind General Motors. But that would change. The DuPont family owned most of GM, and once they started to really read what he wrote, they got very interested. Indeed, in 1923, Al Sloan was appointed president of General Motors, a position he would hold for 20 years. As president, he redefined the corporate structure and in the process became famous for what was coined decentralization. The idea was this: find a qualified person to lead a division, Buick, Chevrolet, Delco, and so on. Once in place, leave them alone and let them do their job. Meanwhile, the main headquarters watched the financials to make sure everyone and everything was profitable. And when it was time to replace a manager, they would always be on the lookout for good people qualified to take the position. Headquarters watched and tracked the money very carefully. It was the one thing that was not decentralized. Yet it was brutally honest. Companies live or die on profitability, and if a division isn't making money, then either the manager must get it profitable or headquarters will find someone who can. And the structure ensured it was done with equity. Sloan documented all of this very carefully and thoroughly, and indeed shared it not only throughout GM, but across the business world. Al Sloan would also serve as GM's chairman of the board from 1937 until his retirement in 1956. When he left General Motors, it was the biggest company in the world. And for generations, corporations would use the principles and model that Sloan devised. Not until DEI initiatives in the early 21st century did anyone challenge the idea that a job should be given to the person best able to do it. And today, DEI is starting to die away as company leaders go back to what they learned in the business schools: the strategy and tactics of Al Sloan and the right man for the job. Thanks for watching Vintage Car History, and we'll see you next week. Peace.